Well, I am really super honored just for the opportunity to introduce our next speaker, because I know Nikki. I've met her probably 3-4 years ago now, and I just have to say I have admired her so much from afar because of her powerful story, but also because of her powerful advocacy. Now, Nikki is actually the executive director with the Crime Prevention Research Center. If you don't know about them, please look them up. Crime Prevention Research Center. Dr. Lott and his team, along with Nikki, they're providing incredible research and facts and details that can help you put real information in your toolbox when you're dealing with those odd questions or those people who are attacking you or attacking your beliefs or attacking our rights. Nikki also has been featured on many different television stations and news outlets. You might have seen her face also on this book right here, which she is selling. So if you haven't gotten your hands on it, you can read more in depth into Nikki's story. She also won a very prestigious award from the NRA, which is the Sybil Ludington Award. I don't know if you know anything about Sybil. Do you hear those cheers from Chris Ann? That's because Sybil was a pretty amazing woman. If you do not know about her, I challenge you to look up Sybil Ludington and understand what her role was in our American history. But before I go on and on, please, y'all, warm welcome for this amazing woman, Nikki Goeser.
Hey there, everybody. Can you hear me okay? All right, let me get set up here. All right, so I pick up some trash here. I have spoken out for about almost 11 years now about my own personal story, and I always wonder, I mean, it doesn't matter how long I've talked about this, I always wonder how I'm going to get started talking to folks, because this is not a pleasant story. This is a very disturbing story, and unfortunately, it's my story. But I have spoken out in the hopes that others can learn something from my experience, and so that they can understand really, truly, why standing up for your basic human right of self-defense is so important. Because we're inundated on the news and the media with horrible stories of awful things that happen to good people. And I think that there are a lot of individuals out there that want you to feel guilty because you support gun rights. Somehow that makes you a bad person. Somehow you want awful things to happen to good people because you choose to carry a gun and you think others should too. Well, I'm here today as a victim of a very violent crime, what some would call a gun crime. So I'm here to let you know that not all victims of violent crime want more gun control. Some of us actually believe in the basic human right of self-defense, and we support gun rights, and that person is me. So, I also wonder if I'm ever going to get through this without breaking down or crying. So, I'm just going to tell you that sometimes I can pull it off pretty well, and then sometimes tears come out of, you know, out of me from, I'm sorry if that happens, but it might. So.
We're with family today.
All right. All right, so back in 2009, my husband, Benjamin, we were newlyweds. We'd only been married for a little bit over a year. My husband, Benjamin, was murdered right in front of me by a man who was stalking me. And because of Tennessee state law at the time, I had to leave my legal permitted firearm that I normally carried for self-defense locked inside of my vehicle. Because we were in a gun-free zone. We were in a restaurant, and it was a gun-free zone. At that time in the state of Tennessee, if a restaurant served any alcohol, You are not allowed to bring your legal firearm in there to protect yourself. So, I obeyed the law. Of course, the man who was stalking me did not have a handgun carry permit. He brought a gun in illegally into a gun-free zone. And when I asked management to have him removed because I realized at that moment, this man is stalking me, I need to get him out of here. When they went to confront him, to ask him to leave, he pulled a .45 from a shoulder holster under his jacket. And I'm standing there in complete helplessness and disbelief, thinking, oh my God, I don't have my gun. He shoots my husband in the head. The entire restaurant is just complete pandemonium. People are running and screaming, trying to get out of there. He stands over my husband and continues to fire 6 more rounds into him in front of myself and everyone in the middle of a busy restaurant. There were at least 50 people in that restaurant that witnessed this. I will probably wonder for the rest of my life if I could have prevented that. Of course, I'll never know because I was denied a chance. I was stalked and defenseless. So I've made it my mission for almost 11 years now to educate people about the dangers of gun-free zones and the fact that bad guys don't care about the law. They do not care. You know, you can put all of these gun control laws in place, and the only people they really impact are the good law-abiding people. People like myself who are sincerely afraid of the penalties. I don't want to lose my handgun carry permit. I don't want to lose my ability to protect myself and my loved ones. I don't want to go to prison. These penalties are very real for people like myself. But someone who is bent on murder, someone who's actually willing to murder, you think they care? Does anybody think they care? No. So, after that happened, of course I'm devastated. And I thought to myself, you know, what good is owning a gun if you can't have it with you? We hear all the time, you know, people say, oh, we're not the gun control crowd. They're like, we're not trying to take your guns, you silly person. You're just paranoid. We're not trying to take your guns. Really? Okay, well, I owned a gun. I went through the state certified training. I had my background check. I had my fingerprints taken. I took my handgun carry permit course. I took an intermediate course. I was even a firearms range volunteer at the time. And I'll never know if I could have prevented that because I was denied a chance. That is something that I now have to live with for the rest of my life. And that is not something that I want any of you to ever experience because it's not easy dealing with that. I didn't blame the gun. I blame the murderer and those who legislated me out of my right to protect myself and my family. Now let me tell you a little bit about the way he was taken down. There just happened to be a United States Marine that was in the crowd. And the murderer, I don't ever say his name because I don't want to give him that attention. I think a lot of these evil people do it for attention. So I refuse to say his name. I just call him the murderer or my stalker. He very calmly put the gun back inside the holster, zipped his jacket up, and just started to walk out. Like no one would know that he was the shooter. And a United States Marine tackled that man. And a handful of other men jumped on top of him and they disarmed him and held him until the police came. I've been told that the police arrived within 3 minutes of the 911 call. That is incredibly fast. It never happens. I mean, these police just happened to be right down the road at an apartment complex on a call when they got the call in for the restaurant that we were inside. I can tell you that when it's happening to yourself or your loved one, it seems like an eternity. And it's not law enforcement's fault. You know, they have a very difficult job. But they, even themselves, they know they can't be anywhere and everywhere at any time. If you actually speak with law enforcement officers, just out of curiosity, how many either current or retired law enforcement are in the room? Thank you so much for your service. I can tell you that the job that you do or have done in the past, it's very meaningful for victims. I'm very good friends with the police officer that was first on the scene that night and stayed with me. He ended up going to the hospital with me when they were checking me for signs of trauma and shock. And he's become a very good friend. And when you're there on the scene with a victim of a horrible crime, it means something to them. You are their hero when they're dealing with something that is absolutely horrible. So this ended up going to trial 3 years later. Justice does not come quickly, and sometimes it doesn't really come. So what happened was, it was a bench trial. The murderer gets to choose that. He did not want a jury. And for whatever reason, the prosecutor didn't want to push back and insist on a jury. I wanted a jury, but it didn't matter what I wanted. So it was a bench trial, judge only. And despite all of the overwhelming evidence to prove premeditation, this judge dropped it from first-degree premeditated murder to second-degree. Now let me tell you about some of the evidence that I learned about. When the police searched his vehicle at the crime scene that night, they found 2 more guns, ammunition, a baseball bat, binoculars, gloves, rope, and a knife. That's not a medical kit they found in his truck. I'll never really know what his ultimate plan was, but somehow I can't help but to think that it included me. The news the next day found a social media post that he had put up. I had to block him from my social media because he started sending me inappropriate messages. My husband asked him to leave me alone. So of course, when you block someone, you don't see their page anymore. Their social media, they can't see yours, you can't see theirs. The news the next day found a post on his social media. It said, "Predator versus prey. I know who you are. Run. Where will you work where I can't find you? At home, at dinner, in your sleep, every waking moment. I'll be on the hunt. What kind of life do you have now?" And that judge dropped it to second degree. So this man was sentenced to 23 years at 100% with no parole. I've recently learned that 100%, it doesn't mean 100%. This guy has been allowed to earn early release good behavior credits. He has already earned the max in good behavior credits, so he gets released 3.5 years early. So now I've learned that his release date is October 21st, 2028. Now some people say, oh, that's 8 years away. That's a while. Oh yeah, that's just a while for you, but let me tell you, the past 10.5 years, almost 11 years has gone by like that. 8 years is gonna be here before I know it. And this guy is extremely dangerous. He's already proven that. So, I started doing research out there on websites, a lot of feminist websites, women's websites, you know, stalking resource websites. What advice are they giving women out there? Now, not to say that men aren't stalked. Men are definitely stalked. Men are definitely victims of violent crime. But I'm focused on women here today, guys, okay? These websites, you know, they say things like, you might want to consider moving. You might want to consider changing your job. Might want to change your name. Don't follow a routine. You might want to consider getting a restraining order. Yeah, piece of paper. All of the advice, and look, you know, some women may need to hear that, and some of that advice might be helpful, but there's one key piece of information that is missing. I have looked everywhere on all of these resource pages. They never talk about your basic human right of self-defense. They never talk about justifiable use of force, going to get your handgun carry permit, buying a gun, learning to protect yourself and your loved ones. Everything is geared around changing your entire life, sometimes giving up everything that you hold dear. And I just think that's wrong. I think that all options should be put on the table, and women can decide for themselves what will work best to help protect themselves and their loved ones. But give them all the options. Why is this seen as so taboo? Why? What is the harm in letting women know all of the options that they have? And this really bothered me. Women should not be made defenseless. Now I'm gonna give you an example here. So let's say you are a lady that works in a business and they ban firearms from the entire premises, from the property, period. So you can't have your legal handgun on you inside of your workplace, and you can't even have it locked inside of your vehicle. Okay, let's think about that. You can't protect yourself while you're at work. And you're now disarmed and unable to protect yourself. Walk into the parking lot. If you go anywhere, you know, you go to the grocery store, you go to the bank, wherever, you're completely helpless, even when you pull into your own driveway after work at night. Where do you think some demented guy is gonna go to harm you? I mean, this is not rocket science. I mean, this is pretty common sense stuff. And I think it's horrible that anyone is made defenseless, regardless whether it's a male or female. But like I said, I'm mostly talking about women here. And I just think it's horrible, and there are a lot of unintended consequences with gun control, things that, you know, people just don't seem to think about. So let me tell you about the prosecutor for Ben's murder case. So nobody told me about the evidence in the truck. I literally had to find this information out when I went for a meeting with the prosecutor. They have various meetings before the trial to help, you know, get you prepared. And I asked if I could see the case binder. He said, sure. I think he just expected me to just flip through it real quick. No. I spent a while looking at that case binder, and that's where I found the evidence in the truck, and I was shocked. The prosecutor's name was Dan Ham. And I said, Dan, you know, why do you think he had all of this stuff in his truck? Now, let me tell you this about Dan. Dan had been what I perceived as very condescending with me for many months. And I couldn't quite figure out why. I thought, you know, maybe I'm asking too many questions. You know, victims of crimes, oftentimes we feel lost and the whole court system, the criminal justice process. You know, we don't understand criminal law, and naturally, I had a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, and I asked a lot of questions. So I thought, maybe I'm just irritating him. But then when I asked him about the evidence in the truck, I said, why do you think he had this stuff in his truck? Why would he have 2 other guns in the truck? And he said, I don't know, Nikki, maybe he's just a gun nut. I hate guns. I don't understand why anybody would ever want to own a gun. And that's when I realized that there was probably much more to this man being condescending with me than just me asking questions. Ben and I were stuck with this prosecutor who absolutely despised what I stood for. I had been on just about every news program in the Nashville, Tennessee area talking about our basic human right of self-defense and how I was denied the ability to protect us. And I worked very hard to get the law changed in Tennessee. And it's changed now. Now, as long as you've got your permit to carry, as long as you're not drinking any alcohol, then you can now carry in restaurants that serve alcohol. Now, they're still allowed to post a no guns allowed sign if they choose to, but at least it's no longer state law. This is what I had to deal with. I'm here to tell you, if you think that courts are going to protect you, if you think the criminal justice system really cares about you, I'm here to tell you that they don't. Unfortunately, they don't. This guy is going to get out. What I've also learned recently is he's still stalking me. He's just doing it from prison. This man has been sending me twisted, demented love letters from prison. What he does is he sends these letters to my former attorney that I used for my wrongful death suit against him. He sends the letters on to him. I hadn't talked to that attorney in years. And while I was working on this book, Stalked and Defenseless, I contacted my old attorney to get information for the book. And that's when he told me, Nikki, he's been sending you letters for years. So, he sent me those letters. And I have to tell you guys, it's terrifying. This guy's sending me pictures of himself. He's sending me letters that say, I love you so much. I think about you every day. I've loved you from the moment I ever saw you. And guess what? Even if you move on and find somebody new in your life, I'm always gonna love you. How would you feel about that? Yeah, I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified, and I'm furious. It's kind of a strange feeling to be terrified and furious, but I am. So I've hired more attorneys. It's terrible that victims of these crimes have to bear the financial burden of these costs, but I'm bearing them. And I'm gonna try to get justice, because I don't feel like Ben got justice. I don't feel like I got justice. And I think this is a very dangerous, evil person, and I don't want him to be free in society. You hear people talk about the importance of gun control. We don't want bad guys to have guns. Well, guess what? Neither do I. But I'm not so naive to believe that once this guy is released, that somehow he's not going to be able to get a hold of a gun. Hello? They'll get it the same way that people get illegal drugs. What I'm concerned about is good law-abiding people out there being able to protect themselves wherever they are, because bad guys don't care. And look, I carry a gun every day for good reason, but I don't have eyeballs in the back of my head. And it absolutely terrifies me that this guy's getting out. This is what the criminal justice system does. This is what government does. They say, oh, we need more gun control, but then you let proven murderers back out on the street, back out into society? kind of twisted world do we live in where that happens? So I'm trying to do what I can to keep this guy in prison. I don't know if these people are going to take me seriously, but I've got to try. So let me talk to you a little bit about red flag laws and how they can negatively impact people like myself. I talk about this because I feel like a lot of people don't think about how red flag laws could impact victims of crimes, and they really can. All right, so show of hands. How many of you believe that after going through something like I've been through, how many of you believe that depression is a normal human reaction to something like that? Everybody in the room. All right, so obviously I was depressed. Who wouldn't be? And I remember thinking to myself, and I'm just being honest with you, I remember thinking to myself, you know what? If the good Lord wants to take me in the middle of the night while I'm sleeping, I am perfectly fine with that, because this is awful. Now, was I suicidal? No. But you can understand how somebody might misinterpret that. Somebody who may be very well-meaning, could be your family member, could be a friend, coworker, neighbor. Here's how red flag laws can impact victims. So your very well-meaning family member says, gosh, I'm really worried about Nikki. And they go and make a complaint or an accusation, a concern, to a judge and say, Nikki's been through this horrible thing. She's depressed, and we know she owns guns. We're concerned for her safety. So a judge just has a piece of paper in front of them with a concern. There's no real due process. Next thing you know, knock, knock on the door. We're here to confiscate all of your guns. Now, can you imagine going through something as horrific as what I went through? A stalker murdered my husband in front of me, and now you're going to take away my basic human right of self-defense? I'm terrified. I need to be able to protect myself. This is how red flag laws can impact people, and sometimes the people who are the most vulnerable. I think it's very dangerous. I am not a fan of red flag laws at all. Tennessee is looking at taking up red flag laws right now, and I'm going to try to do everything I can to prevent that. So I'm just here to tell you, not all victims of crimes want more gun control, but the problem is the media does not share our stories. All that you guys hear about are victims that blame guns. And I just don't see the sense in it, Guns are used every single day to save innocent lives. But you don't ever hear those stories. But I'll tell you what, I go through the news and I find those stories myself. I work for the Crime Prevention Research Center, and I would highly recommend that you check out our website. It's crimeresearch.org. And I actually post stories of justifiable use of force, true self-defense stories that the media doesn't share, so that I can help educate people and let them know that these stories are real. These things happen every day. Good people are able to protect themselves and their loved ones every day. But the media refuses to share those stories, and it really makes me upset. So I do what I can to educate people. I guess one thing I found fascinating is Alabama, you guys have like 26% of adults here have their handgun carry permit. I think it's like the most in the nation. Out of all the states, you guys carry more than anybody. So awesome. Yes, I'm gonna have to come back here. This is like, I feel so safe in this room, I have to tell you. I feel really, really safe here. I guess the thing I want to leave you guys with is, I don't ever want you to feel guilty for standing up for your gun rights. Don't let these gun control advocates do that to you. Don't. Remember what I'm saying to you. There are victims out there that understand gun rights and the basic human right of self-defense. You should never feel guilty for wanting to protect yourself and your loved ones, ever. Don't ever feel guilty about that. And, you know, if you are just gonna run to the grocery real quick, just go run a quick errand, oh, I'll just be a few minutes, I'll just leave the gun at home, it's not a big deal, I'll be right back. Don't. Please take it with you, because you just never know. Evil can visit you anytime and anywhere, and I don't want to make you paranoid, but bad things happen to good people, and unfortunately they happen every day, and you just never know what's going to happen, so please carry. And I really, really appreciate you guys having me out here. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for standing up for our Second Amendment.